is, if you want to live erect, live erect. If you want to live for the Lord, get on board and do something right. But that was not my sermon. Where'd that come from? I don't know. My comment is, Luke had a pile of documented interviews with people. Then he was able to write the book after he had all this documentation. And he realized that the people had hoped that the Messiah would come and give them their land and establish their kingdom. And Zacharias was one of those Jews who was looking for the redemption to come. Luke chapter 2 in verse, I believe, 38. And she coming in that instant, giving thanks likewise unto the Lord, and spake of him to all them that looked for the redemption of Jerusalem. So they were looking for the redemption of Jerusalem. Now, in our story here in Luke, as I said, the Jews were looking for that. And the birth of his son John, Zacharias now is going to give praise to God. And in that praise, he mentions 3 covenants that God had made that had inbuilt in them this saving process. Last time, we talked about the Davidic covenant. Today, we want to talk about the Abrahamic covenant. And the next time, we will address the new covenant. Now, I know I should have learned about these covenants a long time ago. But I was sleeping in class, which is really not true. I could never go to sleep in class. My mind was so enriched in wanting to learn something that I could never go to sleep. I love taking notes because I got in the habit of doing that prior to coming to seminary. And I took a typing class for the fun of it. I was the only boy in the 10th grade taking typing. I just liked the girls. I didn't like typing, I liked the girls. But I was determined to learn to type. My mistake was I didn't learn shorthand. I should have learned shorthand, but I didn't. But typing. When I went to seminary, I realized that typing was a profitable occupation, and typing helped. I wish I had taken a class how to spell, but my typewriter never could spell right. I don't know what the problem is. Zacharias had a second hope. First, the Davidic covenant, and now the Abrahamic covenant hope. And I saw today, by the end of this message, I hope you get the big picture, that you'll be able to understand the whole redemptive history. And it's all bound up in these covenants. The Davidic covenant was universal. The Abrahamic covenant was national. The intent of the Davidic covenant was to deliver everybody in Israel from their enemies and set up the rule of the Messiah. That was the intent. The intent of the Abrahamic covenant was to show mercy, that is in verse 32, towards our fathers, to show mercy towards our fathers. The fathers to the Jews were Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. And to remember where that first was launched. God's holy covenant, the oath which he swore to Abraham, our father, to grant us that we, being delivered from the hand of our enemies by the fulfillment of the Davidic covenant, we're now being delivered from the hand of our enemies, but now, in the Abrahamic promise, we can go ahead and serve God without fear. That was what God was wanting to establish. Always, we've served God with fear. Always the Jews lived in fear. Always the Jews lived in mortal fear of maintaining their own existence. At every turn, somebody was trying to overthrow them. They were always having aggressive hostilities that surrounded his life. But once the Davidic promise is fulfilled and the Messiah reigns, fear is gone, and we'll be able to serve Him. And in verse 75, He says, in holiness and righteousness before Him all our days. So Zechariah, 2,000 years ago, in this praise, had in mind that this Messiah that was coming to be born of Mary was going to bring about a peaceful time, and that the Messiah was going to reign, overthrow Rome, and set up a kingdom, and there would be no more people coming against them, and they would be able to live and to serve without fear in holiness and righteousness before Him all the days of their life. That's what the covenants were about. And that's what God said He would do. That's what God desired to do. Well, it didn't happen, did it? I'm glad God gives us second chances, aren't you? Amen. Abraham had nothing to do either with the drafting or the ratification of this covenant. He didn't sit down with God and say, God, you know, I have a few things that I would like to add to this covenant. Here are some things that I would like to negotiate with you, that if you're going to make a covenant in my name, and my name is going to be on this, here's some things that I would like to see happen. That didn't happen. God didn't ask for your permission. God is God, and He don't need anybody to tell Him what to do.
Right. Amen.
He did not debate God on it, and was not given the chance to insert any of his own ideas into it. Well, if I had any part to do with it, this is what I would do. Well, that's never going to happen. Abraham could not personally implement the covenant, and once it was in place, he could do nothing to do away with it. It is more helpful, perhaps, to call it God's covenant with Himself concerning Abraham, rather than the Abrahamic covenant. The covenant stands. It is what it is. It is not up for debate. What God says is going to happen. It is an everlasting status. There was no Supreme Court to determine, well, does that mean that? And it was a 5-4 decision. God's covenant is not up for debate.
That's right.
It's not turned over to Supreme Court. It's not turned over to the Baptists to make a decision what God meant or said. And according to it, God gave the land of Canaan to Abraham and to his bloodline versus Isaac and Jacob forever. Now remember that His marvelous work which He had done, His wonders, His judgment of His mouth, of the seed of Abraham, His servant. It is found in Psalms 105, verses 5 through 12. You children of Jacob, His chosen ones, He is the Lord our God. His judgments are in all the earth. He remembers His covenants forever. His word which He commanded for 1,000 generations, the covenant which He made with Abraham and His oath to Isaac, and confirmed it to Jacob for a status, to Israel an everlasting covenant, saying, Psalms 105, to you I will give the land of Canaan as an allotment of your inheritance. When they were few in number, indeed very few, and strangers in it, He said, I'm going to give it to you. How many ways can the Bible say it? God covenanted, commanded it, swore it by an oath, instituted it by status, it applied to 1,000 generations, it's everlasting, and remember, God is everlasting. How many ways can the Bible say God will do what He says He will do?
Amen. Amen.
When God says He's going to do something, He will do it. The land of Canaan belonged to the descendants of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. The land of Canaan is the land of Israel, including Samaria, Judea, the Gaza Strip, southern Lebanon, western Jordan, and the Golden Heights.
right.
belonged to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing Israel had done, nothing Israel has done, not her unbelief, nor her unfaithfulness, not her rebelliousness, nor her absence, nor even her acceptance of a pro-political reality that today sees some of her land in other lands makes the slightest dent in the steadfastness of God's covenant with Abraham. They will be Israel's land.
Right.
The only problem is they want it now without God being the king.
Right.
And when God becomes the king, it will be their land, and not until then.
Right.
Well, the Golden Heights is our land. God gave it to us. No, God gave it to you. He was going to rule and reign in that land, and when God rules and reigns, it will be your land.
Amen.
He will give it to you. Let's get this straight. For the Bible believer, it must be solid, unshakable bedrock. Especially today, as all around us, everything is starting to shake. At the center of the shaking lies, and will continue to lie, the question of the land. The land of Canaan, the land of Israel. If we don't take our stand on the bedrock believers, we may end up being unable to stand at all. We need to understand that when we tell people the land belongs to Israel, it belongs to them when God rules and reigns. Well, let's back up a few minutes. The beginning of the individual history starts in Genesis 12, where redemption history really begins. A man called Abram starts. Then it goes to Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. It'll do you well to go home and read Genesis.
Amen.
Now this is very, very important. Get out of your country, he told Abram. Away from your relatives, away from your family. Go to this place I'm going to take you, which was, of course, the land of Palestine, as we know it. And here's what I'm going to do. Here is what I am going to do. I'm going to make a great nation. And out of your loins is going to come a great, great nation. Well, as soon as God tells somebody to do something, they screw it up.